Sunday evening show. I'm fortunate tonight to have some people with me. In the booth is Denise. She's the producer and controller engineer. She's everything, and we certainly appreciate having her here with us tonight. I also have as a silent partner with me this evening my daughter, Cheyenne, and she has threatened all parts of my life if I make her say even so much as a breathy word. But it's good to have her with us. And then tonight I have an old friend with me. His name is Chris Finnegan, and I got to tell you, Chris is our Techo-Nerd. This guy has absolutely no personality, but he is, when it comes to electronics or computers or any kind of a device that can do anything except, be like a mirror, he is the whiz kid. And he and I haven't been together for a while, but Christopher, it's great to have you here, our Techo-Nerd. Good to have you here tonight.
It's great to be here, and I'll try and have a personality for you tonight, though.
He's working on it, folks. And anyway, Christopher, he has been friends. We've been friends for, quite a little while, and we've done this before. And one time, I think when we had another radio show, we kept calling him the Techo-Nerd, and he actually would go into Walmart or any of the stores in town, and they'd say, "Aren't you the Techo-Nerd?" So anyway.
Thank you for that, by the way.
Well, yes. And by the way, folks, some people have asked why I don't do a television show. Well, if you saw me, you would know instantly why no television station on the planet would have me. And so I decided to go with the radio, the Techo-Nerd and I. And so it was really great. Last week, we had this charming little gal with us, Saray Splond, and I had people say to me, Craig, you don't really have much of a radio voice, but that Saray sure did. Where did you find? She's an incredible, she ought to be on the radio. And by assumption, I should be doing something else. Anyway, we were thrilled last week to have Saray Splond with us. She's just a little package of dynamite that is going to go far in this world. And we love her, and apparently so did you, which means we're going to get her back, and we'll have her on the show again in the next couple of weeks or whatever. Hey, I got to tell you, I had the most interesting experience this week. Let me tell you what happened. I'm a veteran. To all of you out there who are veterans, let me say thank you for your service. And Las Vegas, Nevada is the place to be if you're a veteran. They treat veterans well here in this town. And I got to tell you, folks, nothing feels better than when you're out in public somewhere and somebody said, "Thank you for your service." I have never been in a town, a city, a hamlet, a village where veterans are recognized with more respect than they are here in Las Vegas, Nevada. So thank you very, very much for your love of the veterans and for the service they provided and for what they did for our country. I went to the VA hospital this last week, and I don't really know what goes on in the rest of the country with their VA hospitals or their doctors or their medical care, but I got to tell you, the VA Medical Center and the medical system here in Las Vegas, Nevada is absolutely incredible. I walk into the hospital and everyone there, they're so friendly and they're so willing to try to help. And it really feels good to walk in. Well, I don't know if it ever feels good to walk into a hospital, but here they do treat you with respect. And there's this one fellow. After I got through with my appointment, I was looking for a little bus ride back to one of the clinics. And his name's Rod. I got to tell you, this man was incredible. He drove the disabled veterans bus. Now, I don't use real names. I don't use any of that kind of stuff because I don't have permission. But anyway, this gentleman was absolutely incredible. He had a bus full of grouchy old veterans who had just come from having a procedure at the hospital, and they were uncomfortable, and they were all, like old veterans do, and I am an old veteran, and so I know how they do things. But This man made everybody on the bus feel like he was their personal friend. And it didn't matter what happened. He was the easiest going guy I've ever known. Now he is a volunteer. He drives veterans all over the place, all over this Las Vegas Valley, and never gets upset when somebody's having a bad day. So to this man, he drove me around, and we talked, and he's just jovial. He served in the Air Force, and he had a job that you really had to have an IQ more than 12 to do. Mine, you didn't have to have much of an IQ, but he was a veteran, and he dedicated his time during the week to serving other veterans. My hat is off to you, my friend, and thank you for making me feel like we're friends. Now, I don't know. He may have gotten out of the van that day and just said, I was carrying this one guy around. He's absolutely nuts. But he was a great guy. So thank you so much for your kindness and your courtesy. And thank you for all of you volunteers at the medical center and throughout town who are doing so much to advance the cause of our veterans. I think it's absolutely incredible. And you, not only the volunteers who work at the veterans facilities, but there are people like Ed Bozarth of Ed Bozarth Chevrolet, dedicated, successful people who realize that our veterans need a little help. And so they are so generous in their support. Town and Country Bank, again, people who care about the veterans, not just the old guys, you know, in the jazzies and who are, well, old like I am, but they care about these young men and women coming home from Iraq, Afghanistan, and in other theaters of conflict, or from other support facilities like our National Guards, etc. And they love them, and they contribute heavily to making sure that life for our military people is as good as it can be. And so to all of you out there who have helped our veterans, thank you so very much. And Ed Bozarth and Town and Country Bank, American Billionaires, and others who have dedicated themselves and generously donated of their largesse to helping these wonderful people. Last week, I made an error, and I know you're all going to gasp and go, oh, what? A radio show personality makes an error? I made an error. I named all my kids. I named how wonderful they all were and what they all, you know, were doing with their lives and how proud I was of them. Those of you that heard the show last week understand that I named all of them but one. Now, let me tell you, if you're ever doing a rundown of your family and you leave one out, you know, it's not a pretty thing. Well, it's one of the twins. And I was making the point, you know, about all the other kids. And my little Savannah, I love her to death. Well, no, I love her to having a good life. But somehow I inadvertently missed mentioning her name. And I had something that I was going to do because she's just a little bit different than the other kids. And I forgot to do it. So after the show, I called up and I said, Savannah, and what are you supposed to say? Oh, hello, I'm still your father. Please forgive me. But I want to tell you about this daughter of mine whom I love. She is Cheyenne's twin, but they are as different as Sunday and Saturday. I mean, they are just completely different sides of the planet. Both sweet girls, and I love them. But this little Savannah, she was one who, from the time that she was 2, craved independence. She loved to just do her own thing. In fact, there were some times that she would stay in her bedroom, and I would ask my wife, Leanne, did we ground her? Because she hasn't been out for 2 weeks. I mean, did we ground her? No, she just likes to be incredibly talented. She is a member of the United States Air Force, and where she is stationed, she's had a lot of recognition because of her singing voice. Now, Savannah and Cheyenne together are record quality entertainers. And if you ever heard them, you would wonder why they weren't traveling around, making millions of dollars. In fact, I would wonder that. But Savannah has been called upon in many venues to sing the Star-Spangled Banner a cappella. Now, if I have a full Marine band and they're playing as loud as they can, I still can't sing the Star-Spangled Banner on tune. And the only key is Francis Scott key. But these girls are marvelous, and Savannah has made quite a name for herself by singing in very important gatherings the Star-Spangled Banner and other songs a cappella, perfectly on pitch, perfect rhythm, and she's just absolutely marvelous that way. Now, Savannah is my married child, one of my married. I see, there I go again. I got like 3 of them. But Savannah's married to a wonderful man. His name is Nick Simmons, so her name is now Savannah Simmons. That's how it goes traditionally. And Nick is a great guy. Nick is the kind of guy that everybody would want to have as a big brother. I mean, this kid is so mellow, he and I could never get along. But we get along famously. He's just a nice guy, and he loves Savannah. And really, as a parent, that's all you can ask, is that your kids get hooked up with somebody who loves them and isn't going to abuse them or treat them poorly. Well, anyway, Nick's name is Nick, and Savannah's name is Savannah, but I had to change it, and here's why. I'm now telling the whole world that my daughter and her husband are now expecting a child. I do not know what it means to expect one. I would say they're now fearing a child, or they are now trying to figure out, anyway, they're going to be the greatest parents ever. But I renamed their little family, Nick being the husband. I named them Nick, Knack, and Paddywhack. I thought that was so cool. Now, I think Savannah asked me today, she said, Dad, you're not going to really say that on the air, are you? So to the world, the little Simmons family is now Nick, Knack, and Paddywhack. And I love them. They're great people. And they're great kids. And this little baby that's coming into the world that they are expecting is going to come into a good home. Going to come to people who care about them. And I'm going to tell you right now that this baby is going to come in about a month late for the first baby of the year, And so they're not going to get a lot of prizes. But I can tell you that kid is getting spoiled even as we speak. And so Nick, Knack, and Paddywhack, know how much we love you. You're on your way back to New Mexico, and please have a safe trip. Now, the question may be, why am I so precise about children? Last week it was about all the rest of the kids. Tonight it was about Savannah. Anyone who is a parent knows that if you have more than one child, that you're in big trouble. And here's why. There is no such thing as a simple way to raise all children exactly alike. Now, I don't know. I mean, if everybody on your block goes out and buys a Chevrolet from Ed Bozarth, you're going to get a set of instructions, and it's for everybody. Check your oil, do all these different kinds of things. They're all going to do the same thing, and hopefully the cars, all of them in the neighborhood, are going to run, for 200,000 miles, and they're going to be perfect vehicles. But you don't get that when you're a parent. The Almighty just sends you down kids. And then it's up to you to decide how you're going to deal with them. And so, as I indicated last week, I talked about all my other kids. Tonight I wanted you to see how wonderfully different Savannah was from my eternal cheerleaders, Julie and Chai, and how wonderful they are and how different they are from Brenna and from Camille and from others in the family. And one thing a smart parent learns, are you ready for this? Okay, if you need a second to go, get a piece of paper and a pencil, okay? Here's what a smart parent will learn, is that the strength of a family comes from its diversity. I didn't learn that, by the way, until all the kids grew up and moved away. But the strength of a family is in the individuality of each of the family members. Now, I mean, look at Chris. He's a Techo-Nerd. But what would his family be without him? They would be technologically dead.
You have no idea. They're pretty hopeless even with my help, but they'd be in real trouble without it.
Well, I'll tell you, my family, I have wonderful brothers and sisters. I actually only have a wonderful brother, and I have magnificent sisters. But I'm in that terrible position of being the third child. And you know what that means. The third child is always the difficult kid, right? Well, I was the third. What number were you?
I was number 2.
Number 2?
But in my family, the difficult one was number 1, definitely.
Okay. So anyway, I got to thinking about something, friends. And that is, if a family is made stronger and better because of the recognition of individuality and because of the diversity, what about our society? So you got to think about that. Back when the 14th Amendment of the Constitution was penned after the Civil War, the idea was to bring all of the diversity in the United States, all the different traditions, customs, nationalities, bring everybody together, honoring diversity and drawing strength, from the different cultures, backgrounds, and that sort of thing. But now our diversity is breaking us apart. You notice that, Chris?
I have, and it's distressing, to put it mildly.
I mean, we're back to where we were, in the early 1800s, where somebody always had to be dominant. Somebody always had to be the big guy. Somebody always had to be the tough guy. Somebody always had to be the boss. Somebody always had to be the standard bearer. And I think we missed a great opportunity just after the Civil War of learning how to get strength. I mean, have you ever been a farmer, Chris?
Not officially, but I have done farming activities.
Yeah, just always been a Techo-Nerd. Okay. But, any farmer knows that planting different crops energizes and revitalizes the soil so that all of your crops are better, right?
Yep.
So I got to thinking, why is it that we took a turn from that? Because the 14th Amendment of the Constitution is clear. All people are supposed to have the opportunity to do what? To do what?
To exist, to live.
Yeah. Now, I'm not a racist, and I don't ever want to be thought of as a one. But we seem to have gone from one state of bondage and enslavement to another one. And that's been a real concern of mine this last week. How do we bring all of the diversity, all of the individuality, all of the outlying, folks into the central core called America? Now, I have promised folks I'm not going to turn this into a political show, and I'm not. But I am concerned when I see the news and watch what the news shows are all about as they see our country being torn apart and polarizing us and splitting us up to where it's now difficult to describe what an American is.
I agree. It is difficult. And our individuality has turned to isolationism.
Well, yes, good point. Not only isolationism, but insulationism. And, I mean, there was a time when we pulled out from this mess that we were in. And then we just started to get right back into it. And now, as the economy is getting worse, so is our national identity. Is that a good word? National? Are those two good words, national identity?
I think it's accurate. I think they are tied together. When our economy is suffering, our identity suffers right along with it.
I think it's difficult for me to define what an American is. What do you think, Chris?
I think it's difficult, too. Well, maybe I wouldn't say it was difficult. I would say it's difficult to uphold what the definition was, and that's where the problem lies.
How's that different from what I said? Except you made it sound better.
Well, the difference is an American is still what an American has always been, but it's not as obvious. You can tell someone the same thing, and they won't necessarily agree, even though they would have agreed with you in the past, because it's not obvious anymore.
I think that's good. I think that's good comment. But what happened? It used to be when I was serving in the United States Air Force, I was sent to serve for a couple of years in Europe as part of an occupational force. And people over there in Europe knew what an American was. They didn't always like us, but they knew what we were. They knew what we stood for. There were no secrets about America's leadership in the world and the style of living that we enjoy in America. And when I went to the South Pacific and when I've been at other parts of the world, America was the light on the hill. I mean, it was the beacon, the banner, the place where everybody wanted to go. And to this day, it is still, the greatest country in America. But I'm having a hard time defining who is an American. Is it just a resident? Is it somebody that lives here? Is it somebody that pays taxes? Is it somebody that skips across the border and comes here and starts to live? I mean, I have been thinking about what is an American. Now, we're going to break for news in a few minutes, not right now. But during the news, think about this, because we're going to talk about it in the second half of the show tonight. What is an American? I just think, people can say, well, the 14th Amendment says if you're born here, you're an American. Okay, you're a citizen of America. Other people say, well, if you live here and become naturalized by going through a citizenship course, that, okay, now you're American, and I'm not really faulting any of that. But there's something that we have lost as we identify who is American. Am I beating that horse up too much?
No, I think you're right on point. And I think if we really wanted to expand the scope a little bit and maybe rile up some of the feathers of the people listening to the show, I would say anyone that has a thirst for freedom and embraces diversity and wants to have equal opportunity, they're an American, even if they've never even been to America.
Okay, I think that's great, and I support that. By the way, if you do want to call up and have your voice heard and maybe make a comment or two, you're welcome to call area code 702-257-4200. 5396 or 257-KDON. We'd love to hear from you, because if you don't call up, you're going to hear from Chris, our Techo-Nerd, and me, and it may. But I want to hear from you. So that we have an idea of how you feel. I want to know what an American is. Chris gave a great definition. I want to know your definition of an American, above and beyond just being a resident from the Atlantic to the Pacific, from the Canadian border to the Gulf of Mexico. What is an American? Can you do that again? Area code 702-257-5396. This is Craig Levitt, and we'll see you in just a few moments. Welcome back. This is Craig Levitt. Happy to have you back here for the second half of our show with our Techo-Nerd, Christopher. By the way, he is really bright. I've never been the brightest bulb on the tree, but he has. In fact, when he was a little baby, he was so bright that his parents used to call him Sonny. So we're glad to have you back. I thought we were talking before the break about the importance of diversity, and about the importance of our diversity being our points of strength, not our points of weakness. We're going to carry that on in just a few moments, but I understand we have a guest on the line. Hello? 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 Oh, Saray? Well, maybe it's just wishful thinking. I thought we had somebody on the phone. But let me tell you this. As we've been talking about how to make diversity our points of strength, which I think, is an important thing, I got to thinking about something that was written in The Great Gatsby, about something called the American Dream. Ever heard of that term? Ever heard the term the American Dream?
I have. I hear it less and less, but I have heard it.
I think we have Saray on the line. Saray, are you on the line? Apparently we don't have her. I'm sorry. She'll call back. Either that or I won't put her on my Christmas card list. But there is this thing out there called the Great American Dream. Like I said, it was used in The Great Gatsby, and it's been kicked around the block a few times. So I got to thinking this week, what is the American Dream? What is it that the rest of the world sees in America that we don't see ourselves? What is it that makes people want to give up everything they've got, whether it's in England or anywhere on the European continent or in Asia or the Orient, give up what they have to come here? And I've had the opportunity of talking to people who have come to the United States to seek a better life. And I asked them, what was it that motivated you? And they say, the Great American Dream. I wanted to come over and get my dream. So I decided to study a little bit on what the American Dream was. Christopher, what do you think? Well, what are your views on the American Dream?
Well, I think everyone has their own viewpoint of what the American Dream is, and I think that's part of why it's so difficult for us as Americans to understand the perspective of foreigners when we talk about the American Dream. I mean, if you ask an American that was born here and has been around a while, they'll tell you it's to own their own house and have their picket fence and their 2.5 children, the standard line that everyone has. But if you ask someone out from another country, it's a totally different response.
I have a friend who teaches English at a university in China. He and I met on a bus trip one day, and he's been to the United States several times because the exchange rate between the dollar and the yen is such that he can afford to come over here and we can't afford to go there. But he told me that when he first came to America, he thought he was going to see nothing but wealth, nothing but everybody living in a great house, everybody just being, as happy as larks and living this marvelous dream. And then he was disillusioned as he went through. He took the bus everywhere. He didn't fly, didn't take the train. He wanted to go, down the road and see what America was really all about. And he was concerned that more than half of the people who live in the United States have no concept what the American dream is. Now, if you look at it by definition, the American dream would be everybody having an opportunity to be successful, be rich, be happy and have a great life. And he said that he didn't see that when he was driving through America. What he saw was poverty. He saw housing projects that were little more than tenements, that were home to thousands and thousands and thousands of people that he would see on his trip through America. And he and I had the opportunity of talking about that. And he said, this is so different. We see advertisements in China, the billboards and on television through other media, that America is the source of wealth for the entire world if anybody really wants to, have it. So I got to thinking about this American dream. And I think you hit it on the head. Everybody, the American dream is what anyone in America dreams. Is that about what you said?
That's absolutely correct. That is the American dream.
So it's what anybody dreams, and that's bringing all that together is what creates the American dream. But as you know, wherever you have a positive, you also have a
negative.
A negative. And what is the opposite of the great American dream?
Great American nightmare.
That great American nightmare. Now, more than half of the people in the United States are not successful, they are poor, and they are living by government subsidy or some entitlement. I hate to tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, government cannot deliver on the great American dream. They can only keep people in a miserable state. But people who are in the nightmare don't know they're miserable. Why? Because they get a check every month and they go about and do their thing. And this nightmare is really now all-encompassing. Anyway, I it's a good thing that I was in the Air Force because I just lost my train of thought. So, no, at any rate, I don't know how to say this. What is the difference between the dream and the nightmare? I mean, what if you could say one word that would differentiate between who's living here and who's living there? What might that word be?
Hard work. Work, not hard work.
Well, I know.
Well,
Techo-Nerds, you don't sweat much. That is the key. In order to have the dream come true, you have to work hard and make it come true. Just like Ed Bozarth, just like the folks at Town and Country Bank, just like the folks at America Billionaires, you can't sit idly and expect the dream to happen. That isn't the way it happens. The dream happens because you get out and you work hard. Now, if you look at all of the people who are having a difficult time in America today, the number one issue is they haven't got a way of making income.
Absolutely.
I mean, people live on government subsidies, but they ain't ever going to get rich doing that. And so there seems to be an attitude of ingratitude from those who don't have gainful employment to those who do. To the point that those that don't have gainful employment want to sue the rich, so that the rich who have learned how to make the American dream come true are penalized because of their success. Now, I think that's something we really, as a country, need to deal with, because as we are polarized between the haves and the have-nots, there's a real war going on. The haves and the have-nots are at war. I mean, in my opinion. And it looks like America now is polarizing out, and we're at a standstill. What do you think?
Well, I think you're right. I think we are at a standstill. But I think what needs to be said is the people that are living the American nightmare think they're living the American dream, and that's what's creating this war.
That's the truth. That's a great point. That's a great point. And, I mean, here in Las Vegas, you can drive by and see young people hanging around all day long smoking dope. I don't have to smoke dope. I was born a dope. And so, but you can see all kinds of things going on as people refuse to work. And they refuse to do something that will change their status in life. Now, in 2 weeks, folks, we're going to have a guy on the show. His name's Andy Anderson, and he's incredible. You're going to love him because he's going to help people learn what they can do to start getting out of the nightmare and getting into the dream. And there was one statement that I think I really like. Those of you out there in Radio Land, get out a pencil and paper. This one's worth writing down. So what is it that makes people who want to live the dream, what makes it possible for them to live the dream? And it's hard work, but, and here's what you got to write down, because this is so cool, okay? Successful people make a habit of doing the things that failures refuse to do. Successful people make a habit of doing the things that successful people fail to do or won't do.
That unsuccessful people fail to do or won't do.
Did that even make sense, what I said? It didn't? The producer's back there going, what? People who are successful create success. They don't fall into it. They don't inherit it. People who fail don't do the things that successful people do. How was that? Was that any better, Denise? That was good. Okay. I like to be understood. My kids have never understood me. But when you think about it, and this is a big drum roll, according to Adam Smith and his fantastic book, The Wealth of Nations, published in 1775, he says, for any country to be successful, I've got a drum roll. How cool is that? Do that again. That was really cool. Okay, here's what Adam Smith said. For a country to be successful economically, everybody's got to have a job. Everybody has got to contribute to the economy. Sure, we're going to have some that are going to drag their feet, and we're going to have to take care of them just because they're citizens. But the success of any country's economy is based upon the number of people putting in to the national bucket, and proportionally the number of people who are pulling out from the national bucket. I want to tell you, people, there's not a person in America today, with very, very, very few exceptions, who can't get out of the great American nightmare and begin living the American dream. So in 2 weeks, when we have Andy Anderson with us, he's going to talk about that. We're going to have a lot of fun. It's not going to make me popular, but then if you saw me on the street, I wouldn't be all that popular anyway. But the point that we're going to make is that we're stronger if everyone in the country contributes to the strength of the country.
Absolutely. You hit everything on the head there. People have to understand that even when they're failing, they're working to fail. So if you're going to work, why not work to succeed?
Yes, that's a great point. That's a great point. And let me tell you something, folks out there that love our veterans and love our armies and navies, the Air Force and the Marine Corps, and of course the Coast Guard. Because our current administration spends money on idleness, now if you are in the services and have to go to the hospital, they'll pay the hospital bills, but you have to buy the food. So if you're going to eat when you're in the hospital, you got to pay for your own food. People, wrap your head around that one. And the other, here's another one. The administration has downgraded our militia, our National Guard, to the point where they're not effective. Now, unfortunately, we voted for an administration that was anti-military. And he'll do anything except put boots on the ground. But for the boots that we have, we need to take care of them better. And I'm going to call on others like Ed Bozarth and Town and Country Bank and American Billionaires to see if we can't make a difference there. I guess the point I'm making is that America needs to be strong again. Militarily, yes, we have got to be able to take care of ourselves and to be firm internationally. But we got to get Americans working. We got to get Americans to the point where they're happy to bring home a paycheck and not an entitlement. We got to have some kind of movement, Christopher, and Shai. We've got to have some kind of a movement that people go, oh, my gosh, I don't want to be in misery anymore. I didn't know I was in misery. But I can have a share of the great American dream. It says I can. And we've got to get people mobilized to moving in that direction so that they can enjoy what people all around the world think everybody in America enjoys.
Absolutely. They need to get out of their nightmare. Their nightmare is becoming other people's nightmare. It's a joint effort. Dreams are shared, nightmares are shared. There's just no two ways about it.
I know one family that I think the mom works 2 or 3 jobs, works just as hard as she can work, while her son, who's 22, 21, 22, hangs around all day with his buddies, just sitting on the porch, doing their thing. But it isn't working. And this poor lady comes home. She is just as tired as she can be. What a wonderful woman. But there's too much of that going on in our society. There's too much of that going on. Sorry we missed Saray's call. She's a sweetie. I got to take my hat off to her. And I did it last week. And you know Saray.
Yeah, I do. She's a wonderful lady.
Well, she goes beyond wonderful. She's incredible. And I'll tell you why I think she's incredible. She is one against whom society focuses its hate and distrust. But the girl has an indomitable spirit. She decided when she was 15 years of age she was going to make it in this world. And I just have nothing but a ton of respect for her, going to school, working a couple of jobs, being a great mom. I look at her and I look at others and I say, why? What's different about Saray? What's different about people who are making it happen?
I agree. It's unfathomable that you can have people behaving the way they're behaving these days and yet have someone like Saray that just is amazing, as you say she is.
And we've been talking about living the American dream. It's people like Saray, you, Shai, Denise, who are working, who take home a paycheck, and they take care of themselves, and they pay their taxes, and they do the things that they should do. Now, people that do that empower the American spirit. I believe that those in the 50% who are in misery, who are not enjoying the great American dream, have lost the spirit. They have lost the concept that it actually can be done. They've lost the idea that, wait a minute, I can actually move today from this position to this position and start getting a piece of that great pie. And when people are motivated and when they are energized and when they are mobile, that creates energy. And that energy that brings us all together in an upward progressive motion is the great American spirit.
And drives the American dream.
Yeah, the two go together. You can't have one without the other. And when we talk to Andy Anderson in a couple of weeks, he travels all over the country giving seminars on how people can start their own business. And, I mean, he's incredible, but he's also a manufacturer. He got an idea one day, and he started to build furniture. Not just any furniture, incredibly specific furniture. And we're going to talk about that in 2 weeks. But I guess the thing I'm saying, thank you, Savannah, for helping me understand that kids who are different are great kids. And it's the parents who are crazy. And that when you've got these great kids, let them come together. Do you know what happened? No, I'm going to tell you what happened. Yesterday, Brenna got married. No, it was Friday. Brenna married a great guy. I mean, he just is a great guy. And the whole family was up there, even the weird ones. And they were laughing and they were having a great time as a family. And there were no two there who were alike. I think that's absolutely incredible. And that's what we've got to do to this country, is get people to understand that, by golly, let's come together. And how do you do it? You take your shot at the great American dream, at living the American dream, and then picking up on the energy that is created by others who make that same decision.
And you never give up.
No, you might have bumps and bruises along the way. You do as parents. These kids of mine have beat me half to death daily. But they're marvelous. And you're right, you never give up. Not as parents, you never give up as Americans. So, going back to answer my question, what is an American?
Someone who lives the American dream, is empowered by the American spirit, and never gives up.
Never gives up. And whose mobility creates energy for others. Isn't that beautiful? And that's what Adam Smith talked about in The Wealth of Nations way back in 1775. That wholeness comes not from sameness, but from contributions to the whole. I know I'm going back and forth on this, and I'm probably beating this horse half dead. But people in America who are living the American dream prove that it can be done. And that dream is not a financial level. It's whatever makes you feel happy, whatever brings you happiness. And those people who are doing that, they're living the American dream, and they feel that energizing power.
They do. They're what drives America.
And that's the American spirit. That's the empowering. And so, what is that word they use? That where the sum of the whole is greater than its parts?
It's
Synergy.
Synergy.
That's a good word. Synergy, and that's S-Y, not S-I. You're not supposed to go out and sin. You're just, this synergy means that this everybody moving together creates more power and more of this American spirit than anyone can do on their own. So we're all beneficiaries of everybody's upward motion. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you, I'm so grateful that you joined us tonight. And I'm sorry if I get on these pulpits, these soapboxes like I'm in Hyde Park, England, and start beating the drum. But this week, I took a drive throughout Las Vegas. And I saw people who were homeless, healthy, and had no right to be homeless or walking down the middle of the street begging money. And I see people in other places who are just struggling with everything they can do to just survive. And somehow there is a bridge between surviving and living the American dream. I'm just sold on that. How about you, Christopher?
I'm absolutely sold right along with you.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me tonight. And joining Chris, thank you for being here. Denise, thank you for all you do. And Shai, thank you for being here. You're wonderful people. Let's get everybody in America living the American dream so we can feel that great empowering of the American spirit. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you next week, 7 o'clock.